Hey everybody, welcome to the PHP Podcast. Our host, Mr. Sapaula, just got back. Mr. Sapaula, I'm so excited to be with you again today, brother.
I'm fired up too as well. It is my final official last closeout here in Oak Brook, and I'm so fired up to have our guest.
Our host, Mr. Sapaula, just got
back. Okay, there's some feedback there. I'm so excited to have our guest, Vice President, just relocated to North Carolina, Fred Terris, who's going to be with us here in episode 14, starting in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. I'm fired about this. And by the way, before I get started, man, I got a bunch of MDs here from across. I'm sorry, guys, my camera keeps turning on and off. I'll make sure I stay in one spot here real quick. But yes, last week I was in Dallas, but we flew up this week because it is our last official closeout in Oak Brook to say our final hurrah, our final salute, our final goodbyes here to the office we built here for basically 10 years now here in Oak Brook, Illinois, now that we're relocated to Dallas. But my marketing director had taken this office over. But as a final hurrah, we decided to say goodbye to Oak Brook. So all the MDs of the Mighty Smart Movement organization decided to fly in. So today, we got a bunch of MDs here real quick. Say hello. Guys, come here. Say hello. So we got Bianca. We got Bianca Rist from Jacksonville is up here. We got who else is over here? Ooh. There we go. Oh, here we go. We got Ruben Ote from Memphis. We got Eric Almquist from Oregon. We got Travis, Vanessa. Yo, come on here real quick, guys. We got Vanessa and Travis. Yo, come on. Get on camera. We got Travis here from Orange County. We got Gautam Aurora here from Orange County too as well. So these are MDs, the guys running their own office across the country, representing my Smart Movement organization. Just want to say hello as you launch this podcast. As we get, are you guys fired up about an annual convention in August?
Absolutely. Right? It's going to be huge.
They're fired up today about also the conversation. Arturo Casada is here also from the East Coast. Former United, you're not here, bro. Arturo Casada. We got Maurice Hansberry here, who's helped lead this office in the transference from me to now Maurice Hansberry. And of course, Rudy Ortiz. We're so diverse. We're so multicultural. We got everybody. We got all types of flavors of agents, shapes and sizes. Guys, I'm very proud of you guys for being here. And over, man, excited for you guys. Thank you for saying hello. We got the podcast here. Anyway, guys, I'm excited about this podcast, man. Let freedom ring. The conversation about the conversation about 4th of July is coming up. So many of the topics we're going to be talking about today. George, before we jump into the topics, can you formally bring up our good friend here? You called him Freddie Terris to the podcast.
I appreciate it. Yes, I got a chance to meet Fred Terris and Christy Terris before she was Christy Terris, Christy Dussablon, right? I met them when they were dating.
Dussablon.
Yes, and one day this Michael Robertasio meets Fred Terris. Fred, where did he meet you real quick? I want to do a proper introduction, but where'd you guys meet?
We were at Kaplan Financial in downtown LA studying for our securities licenses.
So Mike is prospecting, meeting different people. They run into each other and he says, George, I got this Jersey guy. He's got a big personality, wants to do something big in his life. At that time, he's running a restaurant. I believe it was called the Buddha Lounge back then.
That's correct. Buddha Lounge in Agora Hills, yeah.
Yeah, managing a restaurant, managing the bar, managing the restaurant, just running the show. Came out from Jersey with nothing, didn't know anybody in California, and just to come recreate himself. And at that moment, I met him while he was getting his licenses, got a chance to be his first field trainer. Our first field trainer appointments were good memories. There's some inside jokes there we will leave off the table for today. But to see this man to go from being a bartender to business owner, and when he gives that message, if he shares it with you guys today, it's an emotional message. There was a conversation that he had with himself, saying hello to somebody new, goodbye to somebody else. I hope you'll share that, Fred, with people today. But to see these guys going from being a bartender to today, soon to cross $400,000 in income here any day now, running a business. He's got people in St. Louis, people in California, people in North Carolina. Where else you got people, Fred?
Texas.
So with that being said, father, brand new, beautiful 2 baby girls, not one baby girl, one little girl, but just a beautiful family, beautiful story of what somebody can do when they make a decision to find out what they're really capable of. and to get outside their norm, their comfort zone of being in restaurants for 20 years and to recreate yourself. So with that being said, everybody, on PHP's podcast today, welcome our guest, Mr. Fred Terris, everybody.
Thank you. Good to be with you today, gentlemen. Thank you for having me. It's absolutely a huge honor to be a part of this and to be here with you two guys that I look up to, both of you. So thank you for having me on today.
By the way, if you're a server, you're a bartender, let us know in the chat box. If you're a bartender, server, you're a hospitality worker, let us know in the chat box. And you know why? You know, I realized, George, we're giving those folks in that category a lot of hope today because George, Red Lobster,
yep,
former server, Olive Garden server, Buddha Bar, bartender. Guys, we got
look at that.
Look at all three of us. So if you it taught us service, it taught us, you know. By the way, I saw this interesting article that this restaurant in North Carolina is putting a forced gratuity to anybody that eats at the restaurant, saying, listen, we can't afford to pay our guys a higher wage, but we're just going to force 20% on the tab for anybody that decides to eat here. So I wanted to ask you guys, you know, good or bad to force 20% tip gratuity on patrons that go to that restaurant?
Go ahead, Fred.
George, if you'd like to go first, or I can go either.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Look, there's the idea that tips, right? Tips is to ensure proper service. You've heard that idea of what a tip is, and to ensure proper service and to force that onto someone. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to ensure proper service. That just means that the individual is going to work for their money, and they may not have to go above and beyond to give you that level of service because they know they're going to get their tip either way. And on the other side, you know, from a patron standpoint, what if the patron doesn't want to give 20%? Maybe that they're, you know, they want to follow the golden rule of 15%, maybe stretch to 18%. I think 20% is a little high. I'm a 20% and above. We just gave a 95% tip to a server, literally on a $150 bill, just my wife and I, on Saturday. We gave a 95% tip because this kid was amazing at what he did, and he was coachable because we were helping him open a bottle of wine. So I'm a guy that lived on tips for 18 years, but I want to earn my tips. From a capitalistic standpoint, give me the ability to earn it instead of just giving it to me. So there's a psychology there that you got to be careful with when it comes to forcing that on patrons and what it does to the individual and their drive to want to serve at a higher level.
We're capitalists before we even realize we're capitalists.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that because I remember going to a resort in the Bahamas. I think it was at the Atlantis in Bahamas. And right away, they put on the tip 20%. And I realized that these guys weren't working for their tip because it's like they already knew it's going to happen anyway. So they were kind of lackadaisical, slow. And, you know, we're sticklers for service. And so we want to be able to overpay. Forget 20%. We want to overpay for service. Mm-hmm. And if we don't get that, then we don't overpay for service. It just should be slammed on us. But George, thoughts?
Yeah, I don't agree on that at all. No, a person I give 15% even to bad servers. Mm-hmm. Even it's to bad servers, I still give 15% because I'm a tipper and that's the way my dad raised me. My dad worked in the casino for a long time, and he was a poker dealer, blackjack dealer. And if you've ever worked in a casino, I don't know if we have people that worked in casinos on today's call, but he lived on tips. Literally, he lived on tips. And as a server, I think when I served at Red Lobster, we made like $7 an hour. Wow. And we lived on tips. You don't live on $7 an hour. I forgot we'd have paychecks there because the paycheck was nothing. It was like $84 or something for a week. What do you do with that? Yeah. And so for me, I'm a big believer in that, on earning your money. We went out to a restaurant the other night and the guy gave phenomenal service. He's from Venezuela. He left Venezuela because of the whole communistic and socialistic thing that you see starting to happen even more so in our country. But he left and he says, I got to go to America because it's where I can go become somebody. And the first thing he did when he came here was go work at a restaurant, because there's a lot of people when they come here and they're from other countries, you know, they work in the back of the restaurant, they work their way to the front of the restaurant. And I met him at that time that he was a server, and he was working here to send money back home to his family in another country. And that night we left him $100 tip. That had nothing to do with what if the restaurant would have forced me to leave a tip, I still would have added additional, but I fully believe that that's up to the person on providing value. So,
and speaking of providing value, we got a very, very packed show for you today, episode 14. We're going to be discussing this even further because, we have a conversation here about A team versus B team, because I ran across something at Applebee's. And so I want to discuss that later today, how businesses are adding signing bonuses for people to come back and work. States are opening back up again. Travel is back. I think the TSA is reporting 75% of travelers are back up to what it was pre-pandemic. So I've been on, listen, we moved to Dallas a couple weeks ago, to Orlando for Fast Start School for Mason, relocated back to Dallas. Now we're back up again here in Chicago to have our final closeout. Guys, I can't tell you how packed I see the airports. Southwest Airlines, every seat this will be a full flight. So every seat next to you will be filled. So we're discussing the states opening back up. We're discussing our system and how we provide a platform for guys like Fred Terris to succeed, and that he or she that is looking for a platform, you can determine what type of success you want to be. And what are we talking about? The employee versus an entrepreneur mindset. We're going to be bantering about that, and also going to be discussing our annual convention coming up here August 9th to the 12th at the MGM Grand Arena. So, Fred, I want to fire back up to you as we get people here logging into the podcast. And if you're watching this podcast right now, let us know that you're in the chat box and share this on Twitter, share this on Facebook, share this to your LinkedIn profile, share this wherever you have your social media influence. Fred, what gives, man? How did you go from hospitality, server, bartender to financial service? What's your story, brother?
So, and I'll take it and give you the detailed version. You kind of just chime in whenever you want.
Sure.
Obviously, as the host. But, in the early 2000s, I was doing very well in the restaurant industry. I moved from Jersey to California. And I had stepped out on faith to kind of go, like George said, I wanted to reinvent myself. And I really, to be honest with you, and I think many people can relate to it, I was running away from a situation, not that it was terrible, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I thought that by packing up and moving, that was going to solve all my problems. But the reality is that wherever you go, you are there, right? So wherever you go,
run, but you can't hide.
Yeah. It's just, you can't get away from yourself. And not that I had a horrible life at all, but I wanted to do different things, and I just wasn't finding it in New Jersey. So I wound up landing in Hollywood. I lived there, but I worked at this restaurant through a connection in New Jersey at Moe's Buddha Lounge in Agora Hills, which has since closed down and turned into a lot of other restaurants. Closed down because of the reason why I got involved in the industry, but did very well. I was making very good income, probably more the higher end of the pay scale. As a bartender, I was one of the bartenders where I love the excitement, the enthusiasm. I'd get up on the bar top, flip bottles. I did a lot of bar flair, bar tricks, stuff like that. So
I was cocktails. You're not a bartender. You're a mixologist.
Yeah, I did a lot of. Well, my career started at TGI Fridays back in 1995. So at TGI Fridays back then, you were taught flair. You had to flair 3 times per drink, which is a lot of flip and flair, man. You're doing a lot of it. It's like a pony show, you know. You're like, it's a lot of flair. 3 flares per drink. It's a flare.
Okay, what's a flare, bro?
So flair is flipping bottle, right? Flair is spinning a bottle. Go ahead. Yeah. So go ahead, flip that up and catch it by the neck. Yeah, there you go. That's part of flair. So we had to do that, and so I did very well. I was making well over 6 figures net income. We were cranking down, $8,000 a month just in bar tips. It was phenomenal. And then in 2008, as many of you know, and many of our viewers know, that in 2008 we hit the recession, the Great Recession. The market went down, Dow went down 39%. I lost 60% of my income, and that's literally where this business found me. Truly, I didn't search for an opportunity. The business found me. I met a gentleman in the restaurant, introduced me to the industry, wound up meeting Michael Robertasio, who introduced me to our CEO. Right, Michael Robertasio introduced me.
What up, Mike?
Yeah, good old Mike. Yes, sir. He introduced me to Patrick, and Patrick, actually, our CEO, who I'm forever grateful for, among many other people in the company and in the industry. He did my interview, and so I was a little skeptical, didn't understand the industry, and I got started on a part-time basis, and I was bartending at night. I was running appointments during the day. My career started out very rocky, like any entrepreneur when you get involved in a new industry or you start a business, it's not always going to go as planned. 99% of the time, it won't go the way you think. However, I stuck to it. I stayed the course. And in some of the hardest, deepest, darkest times, mentors like Pat, like George, even Michael and other sidelines as well, people that poured into me, walked me through the process and helped me get to the place that I'm at today. And, it's been an interesting journey because I don't come for money. I'm a basically third generation welfare kid. My grandmother was on welfare. My mom was on welfare. I grew up on welfare. I know what government cheese is. Back in the day was food stamps, right? Today, I think it's like a card or whatever it is. But back in the day was paper food stamps. So I don't come for money. I don't have the identity of money. My internal money blueprint is a welfare blueprint back then. So to get into the financial industry and then to get to where we're at today was a process. But, we started to find some real success after a few years, became brokers, marketing directors. And then it just built up from there, we opened up our own office in 2016, then another office. We got equity of the company and just things started to really take off for us. Started to take off as we increased our identity, got better at the industry, learned what it was to provide value to people, not only agents that we were recruiting to our organization, but also clients that we're sitting in front of. And that led us here today where, we're, like George said, an inches away from crossing over 400,000 and literally with what we have in the pipe, we are an inch and a half away from crossing over $500,000. Because I'm sure we're going to discuss it today. I assume.
That's so sexy.
Yes, sure.
Go figure. You're watching this podcast right now with a bunch of former servers, 6 figures and now 7 figures. It's crazy times. George, what was it like working with Freddie? His wife Christy. I
didn't know that question was going to come up. You got to just mute George. I don't want.
What's it like? We want to know, bro. Come on. I want to know the juice.
And then Terris, I got a question for you too, for everybody.
Of
I think
course,
you got to talk about this, and you did not bring it up in your story, so we're gonna come right back to the question. Okay, what conversation I'm talking about? Where that night okay, all right, because one of his kids, Sapaula, there was a conversation right in Aspen that we had that night, and it was with Rodolfo. Who else was it? With Patrick, and then we finished the conversation in a restaurant that was closed.
And then we finished the conversation at a Starbucks. We really finished it.
Yes, when we came back. Yeah, so you'll talk about that. I want you to talk about that. But working with Fred, Fred was if it makes sense, just make it make sense to me. East Coast personality,
Jersey boy.
Yeah, Jersey for sure. A lot of people don't know this. Fred did Broadway, Sapaula, just so you know. Fred was actually in Broadway. Okay. In what was it called?
You can sing, bro.
I was on a national tour. I was on an equity tour. I had my equity card. I was a union member. I toured professionally as an actor. I don't tell a lot of people about this.
We got to see the video, Fred. We still don't believe you until Sapaula and I see the video. We have the video today, Fred. I'm just joking. We don't have the video today.
Oh, I was going to say, man, I did go a long time. So
okay. So anyways, guys, but no, working with Fred, easygoing, strong personality, very respectful. Fred is hey, give respect, get respect, right? Makes sense to me. I just need to understand it. But Fred was making $4,000 or $5,000 a month at one point on a part-time basis. And he's in the office and I'm like, Fred, what are you doing? Why are you not making that transition already? You're making $50,000, $60,000 a year part-time in the business. And I think the last podcast I was on, we had that gentleman, Alan Gordon that was stocking shelves at Home Depot, not Home Depot, Costco.
He's here right now, by the way. Yep.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Yep. And I'm going to Gotham's office here in the next couple of weeks. So I look forward to meeting him. Gotham's an absolute stud. But there's so many stories like that of people part-time in entrepreneurship saying, hey, I have a linear income at my job. I want an exponential income, right? I want a passive income. If I don't go to work, I don't make money. And I'm like, Fred, you got to, at some point, you're going to want to stop serving and stop bartending. You're coming up on this age in your life. Like this is a young man's game. Like for me, going in the restaurant, it was 14 years old when I got into the restaurant, 15, 16, 18, 19, 20. And I used to go back today, Sapaula and Terris, I'm sure you guys experienced this. I'll go back to the restaurants that I used to work at as a kid, and I still see the servers there.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And I'm like, man, like this was a transitionary thing in your life that became permanent. And there are so many people that are like that in the world today. So very simple to work with, Fred, very professional. So Terris, why don't you talk about the trip in Aspen where you made that decision? You made two things in Aspen. One, you made a decision. The other one, you made a baby. His daughter.
That's it. 9 months later, boom.
Nine months later, she was born. So
yeah. So we, our first daughter is named Eden Grace. She was going to be called Aspen, believe it or not. I'm not kidding. We actually considered her name being Aspen, but then we said Aspen Terris sounds like a hotel. We don't want to do that. So
and plus that's where Dumb and Dumber. That's where Dumb and Dumber at.
Yeah. Where the beer flows like wine, right? Beer flows like wine. So one of my favorite movies from high school. So look, in 2014, my journey again for Success Gang, and for many of our listeners as well, I wasn't the guy that came out of the gates very quickly. I had identity issues, not issues that I say like I wasn't, but I had issues of being an entrepreneur. I so identified with one thing in my life. To identify with being an entrepreneur was very difficult for me. So in 2014, Christy and I became marketing directors in the industry, brokers in the industry with the company. And we were part-time still. So I was still bartending at night, a few nights a week. I was generating some activity from that, which was fine, but I used it as a crutch and excuse. So we go to Aspen, long story short, and Pat has a conversation with me. Our CEO, Patrick David, had a conversation with me in the airport when we landed. And then I had a conversation with Rodolfo Vargas in a cigar lounge. And he was talking to me about like why I'm not moving forward, getting to the next level. Why am I not going full-time in the business? And George talked to me at a bar in Aspen, which was closed. We were literally at the bar in Aspen. It was closed. And he was processing with me and I didn't have an answer. And I was unwilling to give an answer. A lot of times you're going to have leadership and coaching and mentors that are trying to pull something out of you and help you have a breakthrough, but you're resistant to it. So you get stuck where you're at. And that's where I was at, but I was very stuck. And we go back to California. We leave Aspen, conversation's not done. George comes in my office, or I was renting a space at the time. He says, hey, we got to have this conversation. I said, I don't want to have this conversation. He says, hey, man, we're going to go have this conversation. And I am from Jersey. So I also have a certain personality. I said, I don't want to have this, flipping conversation. And he says, let's go. He says, let's go. So I don't know if he remembers that, but I was kind of annoyed with him. Love, but I was annoyed. I don't want to have this conversation because I don't have an answer for you and you're going to try to do this to me. We go on the corner, a Starbucks on the corner of Sherman Way and Sepulveda. I'll never forget it. Changed my life forever. And all the seats inside are full. And it's December. We're just in Aspen. It's like December 19th.
Okay.
Seats outside are all locked up. They have the chains through it. You can't sit outside. We stand, I believe, for almost 90 minutes. And he's processing with me. And I'm getting to the point of being extremely frustrated and not having an answer for him, but he's not going to let me go. He says, look, we're not leaving this conversation till we come to a decision as to why you will not pull the trigger and be a full-time entrepreneur, why you will not take that leap of faith. And finally it happened. It was a pretty big moment in my life. Honestly, guys are guys. We don't like to admit sometimes emotions. I'm pretty comfortable with it because I am. And just to be honest with you, man, I lost it. I started bawling my eyes out because it hit me, and I've been crying. And it was the ugly cry. It wasn't like it was the it was the ugly cry.
Yeah.
And George starts, getting upset as well, visibly. And he says, "What is it?" And I said, "I finally figure out what it is." I said, "Look it," and I'll never forget this. And I've told the story many times, and sometimes I get very emotional about it because it really, truly changed my life. I said, "Look, I have identified with being a bartender for 18 years. Wow. It's what defines me as a man. I don't know how to say goodbye to me."
Deep. That's deep.
I don't know how to look myself in the mirror and literally say goodbye to myself. I have to let go of this version of me in order to move forward in life. And it was emotional, Matt and George. You remember, it was very emotional, man. It was tough. And believe it or not, that was it, man. I went to the restaurant the next day. The restaurant was changing names again and redoing it again. And I went up to the owner and I said, "Look it, man, I've had a great ride here. I appreciate everything you've done for me." And he knew when I walked in what was happening. And I said, "I want to thank you for everything you've done for me, but I'm going to go press in." And he goes, I figured you were going to do it eventually. And I shook his hand. And when I left that restaurant, I'm not kidding you when I say when I left the restaurant, the bartender stayed.
Wow. And the fun guy came with you, but the bartender stayed.
The fun guy's always going to be there, right? But the identity of the bartender stayed within those walls. And my life changed. I went full time. And literally, it's funny because when you go full time in a business, you're going to face adversity. The adversary is going to try to trip you up. Anytime you're going to do something big in life, you can expect the adversary to come and smack you around a little bit. And it was literally 13 days later, 11 or 13 days later is January 3rd. So January 20th, I did that, or 21st when I went into the restaurant and quit. And it was January 3rd where Christy was not acting right. And I said, we're full time. We have New Year's Eve and we do all this. And January 3rd, she's in the house and she's being a little off, and I don't understand why she's off. And she goes away for a minute, and I'm just kind of doing my own thing. And she comes up to me, and she goes like this. What is that?
Pen.
She can't talk. I said, what is that? And then I get it. She's like, I'm pregnant. So,
wow.
Like what? I said, so my immediate response, Matt Jordan, said, what did you do to yourself? Why did you do that? But we really didn't have a lot of money here. And coincidentally, what happened was, we made $45,800 on the button. I go back to my commissions. I told the story many times, $45,800 part-time in 2014. And we went full-time. And I had a choice, and many people on here have a choice in when you step in the world of entrepreneurship. When you face adversity, you got two choices. You can retreat or you can advance. And I made a decision at that moment when she told me she was pregnant. I had to process it. It was completely, totally overwhelming because it was not planned or expected. Yep. I'm forever grateful that it happened. But I decided I was going to advance. We didn't not have a lot of savings in the bank, but we took our income from $45,800 to $120,000, approximately $120 in 2015. We almost 3x our income. So, and then from 2016, everything just started compounding there.
For the most part, kids will make you do that. Man, by the way, Fred, phenomenal story there, brother.
Thank you.
Never knew that. I thought she's like doing this to you because you need to write more business. It's probably what's the truth too as well, because you have kids, you got to write more business.
Exactly.
I remember when I was on a phone and we're in a ultrasound. It was an ultrasound. This is when I was a single dad, still a single guy, and we get the ultrasound done, and I take a call because I'm still trying to close deals. I go back inside, and the ultrasound guy goes, the tech goes, I saw it because I remember from my son, I remember the black and white, the ultrasound, the heartbeat. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Yeah. And they said, say hi to your kids. I'm like, hi. I go to the monitor. I said, hi, but kids, like with an S. And then I look to the left and like, whoa. And tears, this automatic boom, tears just jerked down. The whole drive home, I'm crying because at that time I'm still broke. At that time I'm still broke, man. And like I'm crying because if I didn't get my crap right yet, I really need to get it squared away with twins on the way, with me not having 3 kids and me being a single dad. And so, that was my biggest, fear factor. And kids have an interesting way of straightening you up right away. And you think you're here, right, Fred? You think you're here to perfect the kids, but man, kids have a funny way of perfecting you.
Oh, they'll straighten you right out if you allow it. They'll straighten you right out if you allow it. I know a lot of parents are resistant to it. Yeah. But for me, I was open to what was going to happen in the transformation I was going to have as a man, as a father, as a husband. Yeah. I accepted it fully. So I agree with you, man. They can straighten you right out.
Fred, interesting question here from Stephanie from the chat box. She wants to know, what did you do? What was the trend? Okay, it's okay. You snapped the finger, you went full time. But practicality wise, what is it that you did that got you to double your income?
A lot of it was, believe it or not, man, and I'm not being hokey or anything, but I got to give a lot to the man upstairs. One of the things that happened for me was I was very big in pressing on that I have to make this work, and I believed it was going to. So I pressed into going back to the basics of business. I went to what we call revenue producing activities. I focused on prospecting, making phone calls, running appointments. I just literally had to cut the fat out. I had to dumb everything down and just get very clear on what is going to make me money as an entrepreneur. A lot of times in business, there's so many things that are thrown at us as entrepreneurs. Regardless of your industry, there's many people from many different backgrounds on here that are entrepreneurs that are obviously listening right now. And we get hit with a lot. There's a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure as an entrepreneur, and that's okay because you learn to increase your capacity and get better at what you do. But I just cut it all out, shut out the noise, and just focused on revenue producing activities. I focused on prospecting, I focused on making calls, and I focused on running appointments. I focused on referrals as well. So what happened was, we did not have a lot of money. My expenses back then were $4,500 a month. They are $12,000 a month now just to live. Very different, right? Very different. They're
married a couple kids, of course, and a business to run. Yeah.
And literally $12,000 no matter what, just to live, right? Which is fine. I love it. It's great. And so we only had about $4,000 in the bank at the time in January. And what happened was I had gotten referrals from some clients, and I got back to the basics of the business. And we wound up making, I believe it was between February, March, and April, we made over $35,000, almost $40,000 over that 3-month period. And I said, this thing's going to work. We can do this. This thing is going to work, because I'd gotten some referrals, and I'm decent in the field. I think I'm pretty decent in the field. And back then I was okay. So I was able to help people and process with them and lead them to making a decision. And man, we just pressed in. So 2015 for me was, I had to prove to myself that this thing worked from a financial standpoint, that I can go out there and really go make this thing work and make money. Yep. We're recruiting and building an agency, the agency building model, and serving clients. Yep. And so that's specifically what I did, is I cut the fat out, got right down to the basics of revenue producing activities, which is prospects, calls, and appointments.
And I'll tell you, Sapaula, because that was the year that Fred was in the office every single day. Every single morning, this guy was there from morning, starting off at 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Yeah. Like, it was, I'm opening the office, I'm closing the office. And sometimes, like, people ask questions like, how did you do this? Or what do you do? You know, when you just show up every day and you get to work and you're at the office and you like have to do something, you put yourself in that environment and everybody else around you is productive, you figure this thing out. I had something that when I was trying to make it in the business. And then, Sapaula, I have a question for you. What was it like for you when you went from being an employee to being an entrepreneur? Because I think that's the scariest moment for a lot of people in their life. They do not know when their next check is going to come in. Yeah. And like, when you've been programmed, like, this is how it works. You know, you're getting money this day. You know, you're getting money, kind of like what do you call it? An allowance, right? Or, you know, you're getting money this day. You know, you can spend it. Then, you know, you're getting more money this day, and you know what you need to pay, to go from, I don't know when my next check's coming in. You know, really relies a person to bet on themselves. And it forces you to do the things that you wouldn't do otherwise. I quit the business. I quit my job because I had a conversation with somebody, and the person asked me a question. He says, let's look at Michael Jordan, Mother Teresa, Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King Jr., Jesus. Let's look at everybody. And he says, what do they all have in common? And everybody is giving all these answers in the room, and they're committed and they're hardworking and they're this. And he gets to the final thing. He says, here's the one thing they all have in common, because they had different reasons for doing what they did. He says, the one thing they all have in common, they all sold out. Boom. They all found one thing and said, I'm going all in on this one thing. I'm betting my life on it. I'm betting my future on it. I'm betting my legacy on it. I'm going all in. And that was the moment where I decided to quit my job. And I said, man, I'm going all in. And I think there's a power psychologically, a willpower that comes out of people, where people say, how do you do it? I'm going to will it into existence because I have to. And when you're back, you know, on death ground, and you got to make something happen, you know, you find that there's a discipline that comes in. There's a responsibility. There's a fear. There's a fear to make something happen every single day. And you got to wake up. And it's like that story of that gazelle and the lion. You know, every day they wake up and you got to start running. And that for me was, I got to get a new agent a day. So for Stephanie, I got to get a new agent a day. Every day I had one of two goals. Something has to happen in my business today. I either need to help a family or bring a new agent on board. I needed a result, because it's also easy for new entrepreneurs to say, well, I'm doing the process. I'm making my calls. I'm getting my prospects. I'm doing it. But you have to be focused on getting an outcome, because yes, we measure effort, and that's the most important thing. But effort without results will put you out of business. And so I had to get a result every day. So Paula, you obviously coming from military to the day you decided to be a full-time entrepreneur, what was that like for you?
Yeah, it was an interesting conversation because my first check in insurance was $400. So my military paycheck was $850. So I made half of my military paycheck in one sale. So in my mind, what clicked for me, and it's different for a lot of people. What clicked for me is like, I just made this in an hour versus what I make in 2 weeks, put my life on the line for this country, which by the way, I'm glad to do. And if people ask me all the time, especially with 4th of July weekend coming up, would you serve your country? I would 100% absolutely serve our country again in the Marine Corps, 100%. But what clicked for me, George, was just doing the math. For me, it was more of a formula. As like, if I could do this so I can have more time with my kids instead of being deployed, I will then no longer have to be in the military. And so the last time I took a paycheck from somebody else was 2003. Because then I started really understanding and talking about identity. You know, Fred brought up identity early. Once I realized my identity was me, it wasn't somebody giving me a bartender or a server identity, a military sergeant identity. It was me giving me identity. And once I started wrapping my mind around, I am better than, $2 an hour, which is what the restaurants paid you plus tips. Even if right now for people out there, because we started this conversation about 15, 20% tips. Even that, I'm more in my transition was, instead of thinking like a bartender or thinking like a server, think like an owner. Think about the guy that owns the spot, not the guy that's serving at the spot. And so when I started thinking like an entrepreneur, George, that method started thinking, instead of just being a salesman, thinking like an owner, be an athlete on the court, thinking about being the owner. And that was my transition, George.
You just said this. You said giving me an identity. This is the letter. I know you get them from Patrick, signed by Patrick, right? And this is what he literally wrote. This was 5/10. So right, and it says right there, you create your destiny. Right. You control. You control your destiny. I think that's something that a lot of people forget. I think it's so easy to rely on other people and to really bet on yourself, man, to really know that you actually can control. You actually can control your outcome. With effort and skill set. You can actually create a predictable outcome in your life. You don't need somebody else to write that paycheck for you.
The three things that we all have in common right here too, as well, is that we've put leases on our own offices. Like Fred, was the last time we thought about putting a lease for $5,000 a month rent? George, was the last time you put your name on something? Oh, I owe $20,000 a month for this rent. Same thing here in my office right now in Oak Brook. It's $20,000 a month rent here. Yeah. I used to make $20,000 a year as a sergeant in the Marines. I'm paying rent here for my office. By the way, PHP doesn't pay that for us. We pay that out of our revenue. So that's a different mentality. And I don't want to scare people, but you don't have to do that. It just depends on how big you're thinking.
Yeah.
And so gentlemen, what was it like for you to say, okay, in addition to my personal expenses, as an entrepreneur, I've got to now pay rent, not just cell phone, rent for space. And I'll tell you this, my first $600 a month rent, I rented out a cubicle. My first thought was, can I sleep here? It was just as much as my apartment. Like, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah.
I relate to that, Sapaula, because I'm not even playing. When Patrick opened his second office, he says, whoever here's the offices, here's how much each one is. Most expensive office, I think, was $1,650. And this was, I don't know, 2008, maybe somewhere around the 2009. I don't remember the exact year. And I'm literally saying $1,650. Like, it's like, I'm going to have to live in this. So I'm going to go shower at 24. I'm going to put a closet in here. Nobody's going to know. I'm not playing. But my first one, this was probably the best thing I did as a new person. For all the new agents listening today, I walk up to this gentleman, and he's a marketing director at the time, six-figure earner. And I say, hey, I just want a piece of advice. And I'm looking for like inspiration, motivation. He says, rent a desk. Right. And I'm like, no. Okay, cool. Yeah. But like, what advice would you give me? And he's like, did you want to and I said, I don't even have a license yet. He's like, did you want to debate? Did you really want my opinion? I'm like, because it's direct advice. And he says, rent a desk. So I go to his mom at the time was the office manager. I go to the guy's mom and I said, hey, how much is a desk in this office? She says $500. My Saturn View red line was $500 a month. I'm like, for that little desk over there? Because I'm not seeing all the other expenses, the copier, the air conditioning, the cleaning,
Sure.
the maintenance, the taxes. I'm not looking at all that.
Right.
I'm just thinking about me, right? Even though I come to the office, I invite people, I expect the office to be open, to be clean, to be professional, for there to be everything. See, I still had an employee mentality where like, well, that's you kind of, I just show up, everything's there, but you don't see the behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I said, okay, I can't afford this. So I got two of my agents to go in on a desk with me. We each paid $170 and we rented this cubicle. And knowing that I was responsible for that $500 bill made me show up, and it made me make money. I know a lot of people, maybe your kids make you make money, maybe your mortgage. For me, I didn't have kids or a mortgage at that time. So that desk, that little $500 bill made me say, I got to go sell a policy today because I got to pay rent on the first of these people.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed my life. That responsibility helped me with accountability. And then to transition to Fred, I remember the first time we were opening a new office. And we didn't have an office. We were at a country club golf course doing BOMs. You've heard the story, Sapaula. We would do BOMs at golf courses, at Board of Realtors, all these different places.
Whose card is it on?
Yeah. And I said, Fred, you got to get a lease, right? It's time for you to get a lease because we're opening a new office. I need you to get an office in the new office. And so how was that for you, Fred?
So believe it or not, everybody's got a different personality. But when I wanted to be one of the first people that signed, and it was a desk. I wasn't getting an office, but it was a desk. So I wanted to be one of the first people to sign. And a gentleman had gotten to it before me. He got the best area on the floor. His name was Jose Andres. God bless him. And it's so, but he got the best spot, and I got one of the second best spot, was an open area. But I think when it comes to having your business, when you think about business, you're going to do things as an entrepreneur that expand your identity, that challenge your identity, stretch you. And then there's things that exceed your identity. So for me, it was gradual, Matt. And George, I was in an office with George for 8 years. And so I started with a desk, and then I started with a desk, and I had staff. I then added staff that was working with me that I paid. And then it went from another desk, and I increased my staff. So I increased my outlay, right? My monthly expenses. Then I went from a desk with staff to an office. And then it was the gradual progression of signing a $200,000 lease where I had to put a personal guarantee on. Yeah. Now, that only happened because of a very interesting conversation that our CEO had with me back in 2016. And, again, you're going to have people that are in your corner that are going to challenge you to do things you don't believe you can do, but they know you can. But you have to stretch your identity. And he stretched my identity. He'll never admit it, I don't think, but he had one thing that he said to me where I said, okay, all right, I'm ready to do this. So when you have that responsibility, one, as a new entrepreneur, everything is going to be gradual. You're not going to do anything that's going to completely and totally shatter your identity, but you have to do things that stretch your identity and your capacity. You got to put your back against the wall a little bit. I see a lot of people perform better when their back's up against the wall. Like George said, when you invest in your business, the equation doesn't make sense. You cannot have profits without cost. We talk about this as entrepreneurs. It doesn't make sense. It's like, how can you have a business where there isn't a cost? All businesses have a cost, and then you make a profit. So having your money on the line is going to encourage you to want to make that money back very quickly. Yep. You're going to do things that you wouldn't typically do if you didn't have that pressure or that responsibility.
And one of the things I want to bring up here too, as well, is we're talking about, what TSA and the government and restaurants are doing right now to scramble in finding workers. And Kyle, Paul, I want to share my screen here real quick. I want to share this website. I want you guys' opinion on it because we come from this background. We come from working for somebody for a minute. So I want to share this article here from CNBC that $1,000 bonus is being offered to airport restaurants and TSA for you to deal with the glut that's at the airports. I mean, we've traveled. We're about to go to Aruba here in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
And it's shocking to me to see so many restaurants inside the airports still shut down. And this is what they're doing right now to get workers back. See, speaking of shut down, Look, Starbucks is shut down in an airport. What? And this is at DFW in Dallas.
Wow.
So what are you guys' thoughts about this in terms of a shortage of workers? So the question I want to know is, what do you think is causing it? And what do you guys' opinion here about being the A team versus the B team recruited?
So I think we're in an interesting place, and not to get too far out there, but we all get a platform to voice our opinions. That's one of the liberties that we have in America, freedom of speech. And I think it's a battle between philosophy. You know, we're looking right now where there's a lot of the stimulus packages that are being put out. People are making more money not working than they are if you go to work. So you have the entrepreneur that has a philosophy of capitalism and free enterprise and incentivizing people to work. But currently, right now, we have a government that is putting money out, incentivizing people not to work. So there's a big battle between what's happening with the individual, the entrepreneur, people that have these businesses, and then what's happening within the federal government where they're incentivizing people not to partake in that. So it's a very tough situation for a lot of people. I mean, I'm about to be 45 years young.
Oh man.
I'm about to be 45 years young. You know, I think I'm doing okay for that, but, you know, I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime.
Crazy, right?
Well, you can attest to it as well, where there are people in this country that own businesses that cannot fill positions. I mean, when can you actually think about that happening in our lifetimes?
Yeah.
Never before. There's cause and there's effect.
I want to share another tweet here because I tweeted out because I was getting my first official car wash in Dallas. Okay, right here, getting my first car wash in Dallas. I also asked them to detail my interior. Manager says, I'd love to, but I can't get any help.
Wow.
Never thought entrepreneurs would be competing with the government who pays more. Don't trade your dignity for a handout. So that's my position on it.
There you go, Matt. Yeah.
George, your thoughts?
Paula, last week, this was yesterday. Let's see here. I'm driving. Look at this. Okay, my screen, if you can see what that is. It's a truck, and you can't see the sign because my screen is too bright. But literally on the trucks, right, it says drivers wanted. Yeah, you can't see it. Drivers wanted, right? We talked about truck drivers last week. You can't find truck drivers. You know, it's devastating, man. It's devastating to me because people that talk about money and people, you know, people that look at people that have money, and Patrick did such a great video on this, on the noise, right? As you will, it's just about money, or it's just about this, or you're just about that, and he says, the bigger you get, the louder the noise gets, right? And so you hear this noise from different people that have different philosophies. I don't believe anybody has, outside of like an actual learning disability where it's a literally, you know, maybe somebody mental development, something like that. I don't believe that a person has a disability, and to put a person in a position where that you feel like that person can't go fight for themselves, it really means that you don't believe that they have the capacity to go do something. So I'm not a fan of that. I think people open a business, right, and say, hey, these are my dreams. This is everything I have. I'm going to put it into this. Let's do it, babe. And you talk to your family and you cash out a 401k, you save money, you go borrow money, and you do this understanding that, hey, you know what? The government, right, is creating a great infrastructure with laws and business laws and everything for me to have an opportunity. Because if you don't have some structure of government, it's hard to have entrepreneurship. But entrepreneurship is what pays the government, right? It's not the other way around. Government doesn't pay entrepreneurs. Nope. And you hear the message from certain people where it's like, well, it's all about money. It's all about this. Go ask a business owner, what do they need? Like, the government should be talking to business owners instead and saying, hey, what do you need? You know, how can we give you a stimulus to you for you to go hire people instead of giving stimulus to people to stay at home? Let me go give a stimulus to a business so that they have more money to go offer to people to come work, right? Why are you not? Well, businesses are shut down. Well, why are they shut down? You know, it goes back to that part. So many restaurants in LA shut down. The percentage of people that were even getting COVID from a restaurant, it was such a small percentage, but you just shut down all the restaurants. We paid over $100,000 in taxes. I've never had anybody in the city or the state or anybody say, hey, let's reach out to people that are paying money in taxes, a certain level, whatever it could be, and let's get their feedback. What do they need in their city? What do they need in their state?
Sure.
Like, that's how you like actually, and I don't mind paying that if I know that we're getting benefits where streets are clean and businesses. And you just see the government is so failing today, especially in LA. Homelessness is everywhere today.
Yep.
And that's government, that's, you don't do that by giving. I love what Dennis Prager says. He says, or actually it was Glenn Beck. He says, we don't give people a hand out. We give people a hand up. And I think that's the issue today. It's just giving people things without them earning it, makes them dependent. And you see people talk about that. Like, now it's, you have the power. And it's like, when did it become about power? It's a partnership. Here's the employer, here's the employee. We're partners together. So it's disgusting to me, Matt, on my opinion.
Yeah. And the thing there too is, I also talk to a certain set of entrepreneurs. One says, man, I just raised all this capital. And then us on this side, we don't raise any capital. We create the revenue to capitalize.
Yes.
Now, with that being said, who's going to be a better steward of that money? The one that raised capital, or the one that generated their own capital from their own efforts, their own sales, their own proof of concept, right? Their own trust, their own credibility, and to create value and service and quality to somebody to be able to earn income, versus somebody that had, some cool, slide decks to get a couple of investors to throw them a few $1 million to spend. So I will always say that you're always going to treat your money differently than borrowed money or somebody that generated income. So in other words, I think we're all in agreement that the government, whether state, municipal, or federal, are poor stewards in handling taxpayer money.
Oh, 100%. And we had a guy, Sapaula, and I'm not going to mention names. He runs a business. His business didn't need the capital, but he applied for a loan, ended up getting like $200,000 from the government for his business when he didn't need it. There were so many other people that could have, and the government didn't qualify any of that stuff. And I'm like, he's like, and people tell me, you should apply. My CPA, you should apply. I'm like, dude, I don't need it.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. We would go apply for the PPP loan. We don't need it. Leave it to a business owner that's struggling to keep their doors open and the lights on and employees on the payroll. We don't need it. And go figure, and here we are. We grew last year without PPP as a company by over 45%. Terris, your income grew last year without PPP. Pelayo, your income grew last year without PPP loan.
Yeah. And
so that's the benefit of being in an industry that's pandemic proof, recession proof. Let me ask you this question here, Fred. Before PHP, before your relationship with Pelayo and Robert Tassio, were you being heavily recruited into the insurance industry?
Before my relationship with them? No,
not at all.
No, not at all.
You're in your 30s already, and you're not being heavily recruited. Hey, man, Fred, you can do great. You can do great things in the insurance industry. Let's give you nobody was giving you that conversation before PHP.
No, absolutely not. After you get your license.
That's my point. Now everybody in the mama.
Now I get calls all the time now. It's interesting. But prior to, no, I was not heavily recruited into the industry, which is actually an upside for us, but a downside for the industry, right? Because we need to increase the sales force in the industry to go out there and serve people that need our help. So I was not heavily recruited in any way, shape, or form.
So oftentimes people think that, PHP Agency, because we are an insurance marketing organization, we have multiple carriers on our platform. They think it's just selling life insurance and just selling, annuities, which obviously you're good at. And you've made you're about to cross over $500,000 in income doing it. What else is it there, Fred? What else would you tell somebody that's listening that may not be part of the PHP family?
In regards to what we do here?
Yeah, what we do here.
How we serve people? Look, if you are someone and you're not part of the PHP family and you're viewing in right now, you're a guest. I think I have some people from the restaurant industry that may be logging in as well that know me from the past, is that if you're looking for a platform, you want to do something, you want to grow, you want to get in a better place in life, and you don't have an opportunity currently to become an entrepreneur, get involved in a business with a proven system, legitimately a proven system that can take you from someone who doesn't know, follow the system and be successful in it, you should heavily look into it. One, because it's a legitimate industry, a licensed profession, and the upside potential is unlimited. It's truly unlimited. I sit down with clients, and I was able to help a family here recently, and I helped one client literally who is absolutely in love with what we do. And this is someone who has millions of dollars. This is not someone who's not made money, millions of dollars, millions and millions of dollars. And I was able to build a very strong relationship with this client, serve this client, help this client. And this client has become my friend, to be honest with you. A lot of teaching education went into this client, and they just absolutely fell in love with what we did. And we wound up doing the business. And, I helped this client secure their retirement, completely, totally secure their retirement. And that transaction pays me over $100,000 from one client. It's $100,000 compensation from one client. And by the way, there's a lot of that kind of money that's made in this industry. It's not like I'm the only guy making that kind of money off of serving a client, providing value, teaching them a philosophy around money, helping them protect that money for long-term retirement, be compensated for that.
And let's make sure we clarify that too as well. Not that it was muddy, but we know it. In the insurance industry with annuities, unlike managed accounts at brokerages, our commission is not taken out of the client's finances.
No.
Our commission is not. So in other words, if they have X amount of dollars that you roll from one company over to an index annuity, that's that amount that's inside the policy.
Every single dollar that was moved from one account to the next account, every dollar is still in there. And you are correct, Matt. Obviously, we know that, but people need to know that we do not take $1 of our clients' account value for our compensation. It does not work that way. We're not compensated that way in the industry.
So Fred, how many hours, if you were to add up all the hours of education, relationship building you had with this client, how many hours would you say you put into helping this client make a wise move in terms of securing their retirement, and they will not have to worry about retirement income for the rest of their life?
The honest answer is that we spent a total of about 10 hours together. I just had this conversation. It was about 10 hours that we spent together, where we went through multiple meetings and we really processed a lot. And I had to teach them philosophy. And if I may, Matt, just take a second to explain this. A lot of people don't understand when it comes to money, there's philosophies around money. Most people are taught a philosophy around money based on how they grow up, their family, their friends. They learn these financial philosophies from people that don't establish one. And we have a certain philosophy here when it comes around money. And we taught this philosophy to the clients. So we narrowed down philosophy first, taught them different philosophy around money, protected money with upside potential versus exposed money with, downside exposure. We taught philosophy. Mm-hmm. And we looked at a lot of different angles for this client. So it was about 10 hours, which in our world is a lot of time, right? I'm sure both of you would agree. It's like, wow, you spent 10 hours with the client. We usually spend an hour, 2 hours with the client, help them process. It's pretty quick. So 10 hours is 5 times the amount of time we would usually spend, but it was a pretty sizable case. And so it was about 10 hours, but when you break that down, you're talking over $10,000 an hour.
$10,000 an hour, everybody.
$10,000
The power of the insurance industry. Fred, this person of this magnitude, of this portfolio amount, probably has access to guys all over the place. Everybody in the mom in the insurance industry and the financial advisor world would love to do business with this person. So my question is, how did you obtain this client, and what made you different? What made you different here at PHP?
So I was introduced to this client through one of my associates that met this client at an event. And it was
so through somebody that you recruited.
Someone that I recruited. It was one of my associates. By the way, it was one of my.
What an interesting concept.
I didn't even recruit the person. It was another agent in Culver City that recruited this person, that recruited another person that was in my office, co-leader to my office. And I've been training, mentoring, and met this client at a conference. So it all came through recruiting, by the way, the agency building model that we are so proud of here as a company. And sat down and said, I had this person that wants to learn more about money, doesn't understand what the money's doing, and introduced them to me. And the thing that I will say that separates us, let me just say this. I did a meeting last night for 15 entrepreneurs, very successful people that have all different types of businesses for this agent, because they all met at the sales conference. And now there's this networking event they do weekly. And I did a meeting yesterday for all of these entrepreneurs, and some were multimillionaires. And I said this to them, the thing that makes our company very different. And I say this so proudly, that we are not just here to try to sell people. It's not just a sales organization. Yes, we sell. Everybody sells. We all know that. I literally took the time, energy, and effort to educate to teach. That was the separator. It wasn't going in to chase the sale. It was going, let me teach you what your options are, and you yourself establish what a philosophy is for your life. Now that you know there's other options. Last night I did the same thing, a general presentation for this group of entrepreneurs, and the same exact thing, gang. At the end, we only supposed to go for 30 minutes. We wound up going for an hour because they would not stop asking questions at the end. Well, this is interesting. I never heard of this before. And I said, I'm not here to sell you. I'm here to educate you so you can understand that when it comes to money, it's a game. You got to know these rules. And you can establish a philosophy when you understand it. But if you don't know the rules, you can never establish a clear, defined philosophy, what works for you as an individual. That's a major game changer for our company, because that's what we teach inside PHP. We teach people how to teach philosophy, different ones. And by the way, our philosophy is not the only philosophy for people. I'm a big supporter of using the stock market. Go ahead when it makes sense, as long as you know what else is available. But you can't just say there's only one philosophy that works for everybody, because that's not true.
Fred, what did the agent that referred you, could they have done that business by themselves?
They actually, and I say this very respectfully, because he's probably a phenomenal guy, but he's not there yet. He actually couldn't have.
And by the way, nothing wrong with that. There's levels to that. And it takes a wise person to say, you know what, I can maybe do this by myself, but I know you have a little bit more experience. Let me bring you into this. Help me, please mentor me. What did that agent make for making that introduction?
$35,000.
Jeez. And how, by the way, how great is that for the industry?
Yeah.
Because what the industry does is they recruit you to this industry, and they think by just giving you a high contract and selling you leads, and you're off on your own with no mentorship or guidance or writing up cases, or knock on the door, but with no mentor, they think you can be successful in the industry. And what's happening is the opposite is actually coming true, because they're unequipped, unarmed mentally, financially. They may not necessarily. One time this guy told me, I know everything about selling life insurance to watching YouTube videos. So what contract level you start me at? I said, bro, you know nothing about selling life insurance. I know everything about infinite banking. I know everything about ROP, term. I watch all these videos. You got 100 hours of invested watching it. I don't need a certified field trainer, bro. So I give him a quick case study. All right, 35-year-old, how's this? Student loan, kids, car loan, blah, 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 blah. And next thing you know, he couldn't articulate the difference between life insurance, between annuities, because now pressure was on. And the client needs to be served properly. And how to be served properly? Through a mentor like you, Fred, because this kid would never forget this case.
Not at all. The amount of information and what we teach here, the mentor-mentee program that we supply here on our platform is top-notch, bar none. There's no question. And you know what was the coolest thing about this case? And this client has now become a friend of mine. I care about this family. They're very good people. They see that, my heart's in it with them, and I truly want to serve them. The best compliment came in our most recent meeting, because we meet weekly, and we got some other things we're working on as well. She's got referrals for us of people that are in the same situation as her and her family, which is great to do that. But the best compliment came when the client said to me, people need to know what it is that you do. I'm not kidding when she said this. This is not stage talk for this podcast. This was literally what she said. People need to know what you do. You change lives. I am so grateful I had the opportunity to meet you and David. His name is David Velasquez. David Velasquez, because now I know, this is what she said, my family's retirement is secure. And I said to her, the one thing that means, guys, we're in the industry, we're going to make money either way. This is what this business does. It's a income generating. You can make a lot of money in this room. You should expect to, by the way, based off of your identity. If you're not making money, it's because of your identity. You got to change that for yourself. So the money's going to come when you're in the industry. You expect to make that. I expect to make money for the value I provide, because I've been doing this thing and I paid the sacrifice and the price to get to this place. So I expect to make that kind of money because I'm going to serve the client. But what's really cool about it is the trust. It's the trust, my credit score with our clients, the social capital I have. I said, look, you can literally tell me that 10,000 times over. I said this to her. I said, but your trust in me means the world to me, means everything. And we teach that. Like, we teach people how to really serve people here. So, it's interesting because we have such a great platform here, but so many people don't know. They look at it from the outside without understanding what we do, and don't take that next step to really get an idea. Well, how do I do this? How could I possibly do this? Because they see it for what it is, not based on exterior views, and not what it is based on internal operations.
A lot of great comments here on the live chat. Miriam Rivera says mission versus commission. Ellen, Hiram Rivera's got some very good comments too. As a Corey Stevenson got some very good banter going back and forth too as well. George, as we start wrapping up the show, wrapping up the episode here, you've got a reputation with Inside PHP of that everybody that you decide to work with makes money. Everybody that George decides to mentor and coach, put under his wing, makes money. What's that all about, man? What's the secret sauce?
You guys have the same reputation. I think I think for us, being with Patrick in the business, we asked him, we got a chance to do an interview in Dallas Cowboy Stadium when he rented the field, and we all were there, and Bo Jackson came, and you interviewed Bo Jackson, which was just a great interview. And I think Bo Jackson said something that night where he says, "Don't let him catch you," something like that. It was just powerful, the interview you did. But that night we interviewed with Patrick afterwards. And I asked Patrick, I said, "What do you think is one of the most successful things of a leader or that helps people?" And he says, "Teaching people how to process for themselves." And so when I got into this business, I didn't have the mentality of a person that made a six-figure income, because I didn't make a six-figure income. And there's a quote that says, "Your way of thinking produces what you get. My way of thinking produces what I get. Which way of thinking is correct?" Well, what defines correct is which one you want. Right. And so my way of thinking was a $30,000 a year server way of thinking. Patrick's way of thinking was a lot more than that. So when I would process things with Patrick to make decisions, he would reason with me, and he would teach me how to look at that situation objectively, maybe not emotionally, really process it. And that taught me how to think for myself, how to process decisions for myself, how to manage myself, how to manage my activity, how to assess what I'm doing. And I think that's what we work to we can do so much better. We're trying to constantly get better. But I think those are the things that we do with our guys, where we make sure that they understand what they're doing, how to do it. And then we manage, we help them with accountability, not management, because we're not managers, but we help them with accountability, for them taking account for what they're doing in their life. And really, people just want to know, like, the right person wants to know what to do, how to do it, and then they just need feedback. So all the guys that make a six-figure income with us, or a $250,000, $500,000, $1 million, it's they get the credit, because the same coaching is given to the person that makes zero as to the person that makes $1 million, $500,000 a year. And so I think for a lot of people, personal accountability, personal responsibility is a quality of people that I see that do well in life. So that's what I would say, Matt, from how we help our guys make money. Yeah, we teach them the product. Yes, we do case studies, but more of the character of the person. It's not so much what we teach. It's more of the character of the person. They're a great student. They're hungry. They're a worker, and they constantly want to get better. And that kind of person is going to do very well in their life.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to speak on that as well, George, because I've worked with you directly, and I think Matt he may have got bumped. He's coming back on, but our listeners are still listening. I've had the opportunity to work with you for the last 13 years. And so it's hard to analyze yourself, especially when you're humble, which you are. You're extremely humble. But for me, working with you, like many of the leaders in the company serve their teams, the one thing you've always done is you are absolutely a servant leader. You're a very patient leader. You're someone who looks after, and educates. You're an extremely good teacher as well. From a processing standpoint, not teaching what to think, but how to think, like you've said, which I've learned that helped me become a better leader. And everything I taught when I go in the field, and everything I do teach in the field, are things that you taught me, and I've just made them my own. So from a servant leadership standpoint, absolutely, from a patient standpoint, and from being a great teacher, that's helped a lot of people make money in the business, and many of the leaders in the company do the same thing.
And for those of you guys that are watching the podcast, as we get to closing this thing out, this morning I got a message at 4:05 a.m. from a guy in New York, and he's probably watching this. He may be in appointments actually, but at 7:05 our time, 4:05 a.m. And he says, "Hey, good morning, brother. The clients I had for today canceled on me," because when you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have a lot of cancellations. You're going to have meetings cancel, clients cancel, people change their mind, people quit. It's part of business. Every business experiences it. And then he says, tomorrow I have my exam for the license. I failed it once and I cannot afford to failing twice. I'll be focusing on studying to pass my test. And I think being around this environment, a normal person would say, hey, that makes logical sense, right? It's okay. You were aiming for a goal. You were pushing for a goal. You were trying to do something, but now you're at that borderline of, do I do it? Do I not? Man, I don't have anything lined up. I'm not on track to do it. Logically, you don't believe you can do it. You don't have it lined up. So you can't say, oh, I'm going to do this. You have no idea where it's going to come from. That's how entrepreneurs live every day, by the way. They don't know where their next great client, their next great agent, their next great broker is going to come from, but they're always on the hunt. They're always searching. They're always building new relationships. But this is a part of processing. And this is why I think anybody in this industry, if you develop this type of mentality, which I learned from Patrick, you can be very successful. And I said to him, my response was, that happens, but it's also a test. See, all of you guys on your journey to entrepreneurship, I promise you, with everything is who I am as a person, and Fred can attest, Sapaula can attest, you are going to be tested so many times to see if you really want that life, if you really want that dream, if you really want to be in control of your life, control of your income. You decide when to take a vacation. You decide how much you get paid. You decide what school your kids go to. You decide what zip code you get to live in. If you want to make those decisions in your life instead of other people make those decisions in your life, then you're going to be tested. And so I responded to him. I said, this is part of the test. And then the next part, we don't quit on goals. Quitting on a goal or justifying why it makes sense is the exact same thing. If we set a goal, we hit it, and he comes back and says, you're right, I'll push through. And I think that is the difference between an entrepreneur, since today we talked a lot about entrepreneur versus employee and what that transition's like. I think the difference is at the end of the day, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Sapaula. At the end of the day, one person gets to a point in their life where they say, enough, I just can't. This makes sense. I'm just going to go back to the job. Because I wanted to do that too. And if I didn't have those conversations with Patrick, where he processed with me, I was going back to be a security guard at one point. I was going back to the restaurant at one point. Thank God that Patrick had a conversation with me to get me to that next level. And a lot of people don't have anybody to have that conversation with. Their spouse is maybe not supportive. Their parents are maybe not supportive. Maybe nobody in their market is supportive. But again, it goes back to that mentor. Having one person to have that conversation can absolutely change your life. So, Sapaula, back to you.
Yeah, and to add on to that, if you want to be in an environment to help you process issues faster, to help you incorporate a system of success faster, to get the product knowledge, the blueprint system knowledge of PHP Agency, just like what you heard Fred Terris talking about, landing, I think right now, one of the biggest cases in the history of our company, through what our recruitment processes and non-lead generating purchase. We don't buy leads. We don't have door knocking, door doors. How do you do all that? We're going to teach you how we do what we do, because both George and I were millionaires on this in his business through this contract level, through this platform. Fred Terris is about to cross over $500,000 of income. You just heard him earlier, $10,000 an hour by understanding what we do, how we do it, through our annual convention. And Kyle, Paul, if we have that trailer to play about what we're going to experience, the PHP Spectacular, August 9th to the 12th, let's play the trailer here. 3, 2, 1, let's check this out. fired up for this. And gentlemen, listen, I know we're very competitive with Inside PHP and no bias here. But they've already painted the MGM Grand Arena green. Just want to let you guys know. I don't know why, but apparently the Vegas bookies know. But listen, all jokes. We compete here with Inside the Company, and we're here to compete and have a lot of fun. Great content here, great chats here. Alan Morris excited about being there. Miriam Rivera says Fuego. Kimberly Bota says big event, butts and seats. Obi and Jen, let's go. I think that's Ito Ezzy. Dominic Yantor says, thank you, George. Me and my wife are processing these testing moments. Stephanie says, amazing podcast. I'm going to have to play this episode. Thank you so much. You're appreciated. So, guys, I'm fired up for this. Real quick, 30 seconds here. Fred, final thoughts, brother.
You know what? I'm just first and foremost, want to thank you for having me on here. Thank you, Matt, for who you are and what you do for the company, what you've done for the company. Thank you, George, for everything you've done for me and my family. You've completely changed our life. Thank you to PHP and also to our CEO, Patrick Ben-David and Jennifer Ben-David. But most importantly, I want to end with this. If you are not yet registered for the spectacular, as Matt says, or you are not a part of PHP Agency, you may just want to look into this a little further because this thing is blowing up. And that's my time. Thank you, Matt.
Outstanding, Fred. George, your final thoughts, brother.
Yeah. When I first got started in the business, we didn't have shows like this. We didn't have podcasts. We didn't have YouTube really the way it is today. We didn't have PHP training with Bamboo. PHP is such a greater opportunity today. And I'm just excited because I think there's so many new millionaires in the company that are going to be made. Microsoft made, I think, 10,000 millionaires at one point. I think PHP is going to do that. I think we're the future of this industry. I think we're the future of financial education. But a lot of people think that it's, Sapaula is going to do it, or Terris is going to do it, or Pelayo is going to do it. No, we need you to do it. All of you guys that are watching this podcast and commenting, we started exactly where you are at a 30% contract, new with a top 25, trying to figure this thing out with a lot of our fears and insecurities. And the only difference is time and effort. That's the only difference is time and effort. So for those of you guys that are watching this call, it's not so much the how to, it's the why to, it's the mindset that you're getting. It's how did he process? How did he speak? How did he respond? So be a student of the business. And then for MGM, there's an event that changed my life. And it was my first convention, which was at MGM. And I'm excited outside of the entertainment with Sebastian Maniscalco and Frederick Da Silva and
Nicky Jam, Mario Lopez.
Yeah, Nicky Jam, Mario Lopez. Outside of the entertainment, outside of the training, Mike Tyson, Patrick Lencioni. I'm excited. They say if you have a favorite restaurant, you should have a favorite author. Patrick Lencioni is one of my favorite authors in my life. So I'm excited for that part. The learning from my peers and our sidelines and picking up where can we do better? How do Sapaula do that better? We got to go back and do that better. What do Gaitans do better? What does Del Toro? What does Aguilar do better? How do I get better? So we're excited about that because it's going to change our life. But that was my event. And the best thing I could tell you is get the people that are in your corner, your wife, your husband, your kids, get the people that are in your corner there. Let them see the bigness of what we're doing because you will never be able to go back to them and explain what you saw or experienced. Get your mom and dad there. My parents came to events. They weren't agents, but I needed them to see the big picture. I needed them to see why I was gone every single day from morning till night, what I was going to build for my family, that today we have the benefit of we live a dream life. And I know Sapaula and Terris, you guys feel the same way. We live a dream life. It's like being a kid and you get to say, I want this. And you can go. Like that's what PHP does for people because of our system and the mentality and the training, and then get your people there. Some of your guys, I had a guy, he barely could book his flight, and there's 4 of them and they're coming from New York and he knows who he is, and they don't have the money to book the flight right now. They're just not in that position. And a lot of people would say, well, we'll go to the next event. That becomes the statement for the rest of your life. We'll do the next event. We'll do it next year. It'll be the next opportunity. Don't let this pass you by. This event will change your life forever.
Very, very great point. My final thoughts are having the conversation of what Tim Grover said in his book, Winning, which was our book of the month this month. It said, if you think the cost is too high, Wait until you get the bill for doing nothing.
Yeah.
And for those who've been watching this podcast, and some of you are replaying or sharing, I hope that you've subscribed to our YouTube channel, PHP Agency. You're sharing this podcast, if you're a new associate, with your associates, the people that you've recruited and brought on board to the business too as well. Yes, guys and gals, we are a movement. We are a movement that's got a chip on our shoulder. We've been sick and tired of being sick and tired. You're watching 3 former servers make headway in an industry that wasn't looking for them. But funny thing that George pointed out, that destiny has a funny way of knocking on your door and saying, hey, man, let's do something special. So that being said, guys, if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe. Drop your biggest takeaway in the comment section below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know what you guys are thinking. And let me know the type of people, the group of people that you're bringing to Las Vegas at the MGM Grand Arena, if this is something you're deeply looking into, whether you're an associate or you've been invited to this private event hosted by PHP Agency. With that being said, guys, appreciate you guys for tuning in. And on behalf of Fred Terris and Jorge Pelayo, my co-host, I'm your money smart guy. And until we meet again, continue to help people, continue to love people, and continue to change your lives today. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye. See you next week.